Welcome in to another episode of my Dynasty Fantasy Football YouTube. Today, I'm looking at some Dynasty stashes. As always, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Let's go. So, the first player, Zach Charbonnet, wanted to mention him because I've barely talked about him this offseason. I've talked about him a lot on the Patreon, not as much on the channel, but he's a classic example of a higher end stash. And as we get into the season, stash can mean something a little bit different. We're talking about a player who has an opportunity to gain value in the near future, not necessarily a player you're adding off waivers, right? So Charbonnet last year was fine. I mean, he had 135 carries, 569 yards, 8 touchdowns, 4.2 yards a carry, and 42 catches, 340 yards, and a touchdown. But the season-long stats are not what we're looking at. He didn't have a big role in the games that Walker played. But in the 6 games that Kenneth Walker missed, he averaged 15.2 carries, 72.2 yards, a touchdown. So he averaged a touchdown and 3.2 catches and 28.2 receiving yards. So he averaged over 100 yards a game total in the games Walker missed. So this is not a maybe, who knows what could happen if the starter went down. We know exactly what would happen if the starter went down. Charbonnet would be a mid RB1. Charbonnet is more valuable if Walker goes down than Walker is as is, right? So as weird as that is, that's the case here. So, I mean, this is a strong dynasty stash candidate. So Walker has been consistently in and out of practice with a foot issue. I mean, we've been in, we've been out. One day he's practicing, then not practicing, then practicing, then not practicing. I don't like to hear about a foot issue. I mean, foot issues are bad, but this is unsurprising because Kenneth Walker has been dealing with a variety of issues for a long time. So why is this surprising that there are more issues now? And of course, Walker is a free agent after 2025. Might the Seahawks retain him? Yes. Well, maybe they won't. Who knows? We have to see. If there are more injuries, they're not going to retain him. So I do think there's a lot of potential here with Zach Charbonnet. I wanted to include one higher end player to talk about. Now, the rest of the players, more lower end players like Dante Thornton, who I've talked about many times on the channel. We're not going to go through the entire draft profile again. You know, began at Oregon, transferred to Tennessee, and the final year was kind of all we've got. 26 catches, 661 yards, 6 touchdowns, 50.8 yards a game. It's not much there. I mean, 2 catches a game. He led the team in receiving yards, 4th in receptions. So it's not that I love Thornton as a prospect. That's not why. Clearly, the prospect profile is not really there. But clearly, on the actual Raiders, on what matters, he's delivering consistently. So what have we seen? Thornton started for the Raiders in the preseason week 1. He did. And he was listed as a starter on both preseason depth charts. In contrast, Jack Besh, their 2nd round pick, he didn't play with Geno Smith in preseason week 1. He was listed as wide receiver 4. And at this point, we have to say that the draft capital is not, the biggest factor. Thornton is ahead of Besh. Thornton is going to start over Besh week 1. That's not coach speak. That's not a mirage. That's what's going to happen. And the fact that it's Pete Carroll doesn't surprise me because this is Pete Carroll, the same one that started Chris Carson over Rashad Penny. Merit-based. I mean, he does a merit-based system. And if he thinks that Dante Thornton is better, Dante Thornton will be the one playing. So something to look at. Again, with these types of players, it's less about who's a buy. Am I buying? I'm just pointing out that I think Dante Thornton could continue to gain some value, although I'm not sure about the pricing. He may already be overpriced, to be honest with you. Now, next player, Tory Horton, another player I've already talked about. Talked about him as a rookie sleeper back in May, but he's exceeded, I would say, even my expectations. He's done very well. Now, I'm not, again, going to rehash the entire college profile. Started at Nevada, transferred to Colorado State in 2022, and he had 2 good years. 71 catches, 1,131 yards, 8 touchdowns, 94.3 yards a game in 2022. And then 96 catches, 1,136 yards, 8 touchdowns, 94.7 yards a game in 2023. 2 great years. 2024, not so great. 26 catches, 353 yards, touchdown, 58.8 yards a game, cut short with a knee injury. Probably why he didn't go on day 2. If this had been like the other 2 seasons, he probably would have been a day 2 pick. Now, Tory Horton is doing really well. I mean, we've heard it consistently. He's running ahead of Marquez Valdes-Scantling for that outside wide receiver 2 spot, opposite Jackson Smith-Njigba, with Cooper Kupp rotating in to the slot. And he had 3 catches, 31 yards and touchdown, 7 targets in preseason week 1. He played the most snaps of any wide receiver with the starters. So he was consistently out there. I like to see that. I like to hear about the positive buzz. And again, kind of like Dante Thornton, we're getting to a point with Tory Horton that it's not just buzz, right? I mean, he is earning this role. It's real. It's not just talking about it. So I'm hoping to see even more positive signs over the next couple of weeks, but definitely a player who's on my radar right now. Now, if you like my YouTube content, you should sign up for the Patreon. I'm offering a 50% discount off your first month at all tiers using code TylerYT50. You can get my rankings, access to Discord, write-ups, Patreon-only videos, direct message fantasy advice, and the ability to ask in advance questions for the YouTube videos, which you'll see at the end of every video, including this one. Tiers begin at just $5 a month, $250 with the discount. If you want to know more about the Patreon, check out my Why You Should Join the Patreon videos on the channel. They're on the homepage under Patreon promos. Now, again, I am answering all questions in the Patreon. Not doing that in the YouTube comments or on Twitter. I answer questions in the Patreon every day, both in the Discord and direct messages. That's where I'm doing my direct fantasy advice. It's, the videos are free. That's going to continue. They're going to remain free. But interacting with me is going to be for premium customers only. Especially when we get in season, I get even busier. It's even more so going to be that way. So, again, if you like independent content, you see now that everything is being eaten up by big corporations, AI. So if you want human-created independent content, sadly, the nature of how that works is that requires human, independent, meaning money, support. This is how the world works. It's not going to exist otherwise. So I really appreciate everyone who signs up. I try to make it worth your while by being able to interact with a real person on a daily basis in the Patreon. Can't find that in many other premium products. Really being able to interact with the creator on a daily basis, that doesn't, no one else is really delivering that in the way that I am. They say they are, but they're not. They're not. I promise you, you'll find that I'm different. So I would love to see more people sign up, but that's where I'm devoting my extra energy to creating new projects, all of that stuff, all for my patrons. So I hope to see more of you there. With that said, I'll move into my next player. So my next player, Wan'Dale Robinson, who I can't believe is only 24. It feels like he's been in the NFL forever, but he's only 24. He's had such a weird career. Started off kind of, there was an exciting 2022, a little sample size. Then he got hurt, kind of bled over to 2023. And then 2024 was like a completely different person had emerged. So in 2024, he had 93 catches, which is insane. 699 yards, 3 touchdowns, 140 targets, and 5.5 catches and 41.1 yards a game. Now, the fact that he had 140 targets alongside Malik Neighbors, who had like 170, is wild to me. He had 5 yards a target, which is one of the lowest marks that I've ever seen from any wide receiver, one of the most inefficient wide receivers ever. And he had lots of volume, which is good, but he did nothing with it. And he was used almost exclusively in the slot. He very rarely moved outside last year, which was interesting. So why do I have Robinson as a dynasty stash? Well, we saw some new usage in preseason week 1, which was interesting. In 2024, he almost never played in 2 wide receiver sets, almost always played in the slot. In preseason week 1, he lined up outside on half his snaps. So it's interesting. The Giants did a little experiment. They lined Robinson up outside. Interesting. They really didn't do that last year. It's a huge change from 2024. I'd love if that usage stuck and he became the Giants wide receiver 2 in snaps in addition to targets. He was obviously already the wide receiver 2 in targets. Now, the quarterback play. Last year's Giants quarterback play was, when it was Daniel Jones, it was bad. And when it was the other quarterbacks, it was horrible. Russell Wilson was better than all the quarterbacks who played for the Giants last year, at least for the fantasy weapons. Jackson Dart, I liked what I saw in preseason week 1 from Jackson Dart. I've kind of liked what I've heard and saw from Jackson Dart all offseason. I like what he's delivering. And then there's always the possibility, ever so small, that Jameis Winston goes in. And if Jameis Winston goes in, we know that Jameis Winston is, in terms of a quarterback we want for our fantasy weapons, I mean, he's got to be top 10, if not top 5. So the quarterback usage is going to be, and room is going to be a lot better than it was last year. Could that help Wan'Dale Robinson? I mean, he is only 24. Maybe some of the inefficiencies came from quarterback play last year. Earning 140 targets is really good. So it's a player that there's some upside there, especially from a dynasty perspective where he's a free agent after this year. Could give him a chance to gain some value. Just wanted to talk about him based on what I saw from the Giants in preseason week 1. And it's nice to say something positive about the Giants. As a Giants fan, it's rare I have anything positive to say about the Giants. Now, last player, Chig Okonkwo. Again, another player I've discussed, but another player where I saw something interesting in preseason week 1 that I wanted to bring to your attention. So last year, 17 games, 52 catches, 479 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3.1 catches, and 28.2 yards a game. It's weird with Okonkwo. Every coaching staff and regime, it kind of takes a while to realize what they have with Okonkwo. It always comes at the end of the year. Brian Callahan was the same thing. In the fantasy playoffs, suddenly, mysteriously, Okonkwo was very involved. 7.3 catches, 60.7 yards, and 9 targets a game in those 3 games. Didn't score, so, maybe wasn't a league winner, but he had a lot of volume. And I liked what we saw in preseason week 1. I really did. He played every snap with Cam Ward, every single snap. No wide receiver did that. He also tied with Van Jefferson for running the most routes with Ward. And I do think that we're going to see Okonkwo be an every down tight end this year. Like some of the other players we've been talking about, he is a free agent after this year. So if he shows out, time for a contract extension. So that could definitely give him some more value. But again, he's not old, 25. This is a tight end. Tight ends can take a while to break out. I like what I'm seeing. I like the usage. He's going to be out there. That's one of the things we look for in a breakout tight end is a high snap share. And then another thing we look for is the target pecking order. I just talked about this. He was one of the most used in terms of routes and snaps, even among wide receivers. So could this be someone that breaks out? Absolutely. I think Okonkwo has a path to break out in 2025. Kind of like what I'm hearing from Cam Ward as well and seeing there. So this is a player definitely who could gain value, especially once the fantasy points start to count early on in the season. And also, the Titans maybe not going to be the best team. So they might be chasing a lot of games, giving Okonkwo even more of a chance to earn targets. We had some big NFL news today. James Cook got a contract extension, which honestly, I was nervous. I'll be honest. I was nervous. I had a lot of doubts that this extension would come through. A lot of it was because I felt that Cook's demands were unreasonable, but they did reach an extension at a lower value. 4 years, $48 million. So $12 million a year of new money, way below the $15 million that Cook was talking about. Now, if I'd known that this was a price he'd accept, I would have been more optimistic about a deal. The contract runs through 2029. In terms of guarantees, part of the $30 million, similar to the Kyron Williams deal, part of the $30 million guaranteed you're hearing about is making the $5 million this year guaranteed. So it's going to be $25 million guaranteed on the 48 beyond this year. So really what that means is this is a 2-year extension. 2026, 2027, probably going to have all guaranteed salary or close to it. And then 2028 and 2029, those are funny money. Those are not real years. So it's probably a pretty solid commitment through 2027. That's what we have here. Now, I'm going to save the detailed breakdown for whenever the next Dynasty sells video is. I can tell you Cook will be on it. He's going to be one of the players I choose. But to give you a one-line summary, it's 26-year-old running back who doesn't even play half the snaps, who ran insanely hot on touchdowns, is the most obvious Dynasty sell imaginable. Right after he signs the contract. This is the moment. This is when you move. I've been talking about this in the Patreon all day. We've been talking about moves. It's what you do. And this is the time to move. I don't think I'm going to get burned by, I sell James Cook and he has a top 5 running back season. I don't think that's possible for James Cook. He doesn't get the value, the volume. If you don't play half the snaps, how are you going to be a top 5 running back? There's no way. So I'm not going to be burned by selling James Cook. He's probably the strongest sell in all of Dynasty today. If I had to just pick one, he would be the strongest. Now, one thing I never understood was Ray Davis. Didn't think he was a good running back prospect. Disliked him as a prospect. The best case scenario was that Cook walked after this year. He was always going to play this year. That's not what I was talking about. The best case is he walked and Davis entered, his going on age 27 season as the starter in 2026. That was the best case scenario. Where was the value there? And that was if everything went right. They didn't bring another running back. Cook actually walked. All the things went right. That's what you were hoping for. Now, Davis is going to be the backup to Cook for his entire rookie deal. And then he'll be a free agent after 2027 when he's already 28, going on 29. Like, where is the Dynasty value here? I never understood this with Ray Davis. People were saying Ray Davis is worth more than a second. I loved to hear the explanation why. No one ever delivered such an explanation. So I've never been in. I've never had any shares. I've never liked him. And this is a player I've just always been out on. And I will continue to be out because there's just no path to any Dynasty value really for Ray Davis ever, barring a catastrophic injury to James Cook. And even so, it's still going to rotate snaps. It's not going to be what we want, I don't think. So I have no interest in Ray Davis whatsoever. So I've got 2 Patreon questions and I'll wrap up today's show. So the first one, I get this question a lot. It's a good question. Do you project out early, mid, late when trading for picks this time of year? If not now, when during the season can you reliably start projecting things like that? Okay. So generally, once the rookie draft is completed and we see what team someone is taking into the year, at that point, that's when I start feeling pretty comfortable projecting to some degree early, mid, or late. I think I can tell there are some teams that are terrible and there are some teams that are probably going to be really good, right? So yeah, it's absolutely a factor. Now, of course, during the season, as teams start to have a record, it becomes a lot more reliable. If a team is 5-0, that pick is going to be late. If a team is 0-5, that pick is going to be early, right? We have a record. It's a guarantee. It's not a maybe. But yes, I am projecting it. It's a factor in my strategy. I'd rather trade for an earlier pick than a later one. I'd rather trade away a later pick over an earlier one. But in terms of how I factor it in exactly, that's something I do on the Patreon in the DMs. I'll look at the other roster. I'll talk it over with you. I'll work you through how it changes the valuation of that particular pick based on that particular situation. But the answer is yes, I do it, but more so on a case-by-case basis, not in terms of like a general overarching strategy. Which handcuff running back has the most upside to be a top 10 starter if the incumbent or the other piece in the timeshare goes down? Oh, it's Zach Charbonnet. That's not even close. We already know that. Zach Charbonnet is actually the only one. He's the only one where we know, it's not maybe, we know that Zach Charbonnet would be a top 10 running back if the other piece went down. No doubt. That's the only one where I am sure that in that week of start sit, I would rank Zach Charbonnet as a top 10. There is no one else who meets that criteria. So it is Zach Charbonnet by a large margin. Now, if you liked the video, make sure to support the channel by subscribing. And don't forget to hit that notifications bell so you can be notified about all my exciting content as it drops. Of course, if you want my best fantasy football advice, it's available on the Patreon. Dynasty and other fantasy football content year-round. You get a 50% discount at all tiers using code TylerYT50. Sign up in the top right corner, patreon.com/fantasy advice. As I said earlier, every sign-up helps support my independent content. It's very rare these days, so I really appreciate all the support. But once again, Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.